Imagine waking up in a magical world only to get the weakest class of all. Even his ex dumped him when she saw he could only summon 2 lousy skeletons. But the tables turned on the haters after a secret system update changed everything. Who needs cooldowns when you can summon an infinite army of the undead? Now he blows up monsters like they are New Year's Eve fireworks. It all begins with a desperate little boy in the middle of the forest, surrounded by level 5 wild wolves approaching hungrily while he cries out for help. Suddenly, the beasts charge at the little boy with their jaws wide open for the attack. Not knowing what to do, the boy simply curls up and screams in terror, bracing for the worst. But in the blink of an eye, a burst of light cuts through the air and instantly obliterates the wolves in an explosion of blood. With the monsters defeated and dissolving like digital data, a calm voice reassures the boy, telling him he is safe now. Still trembling with tears in his eyes, the young boy asks if he is truly safe, receiving a warm confirmation. An imposing swordsman appears before him, extending his hand and offering to take him back to the safety of the city. Only upon reaching the city gates does the boy discover that his savior was none other than Luo Zhenning, the great hero of the Destiny Alliance. This momentous encounter would define the young man's future, as he now lives in a world surrounded by magic and mystery. Years later, Chen Shi sits frustrated on the steps of an academy, reflecting on having awakened as a shadow mage. Although it isn't considered a trash class, he knows that shadow magic is too common to make him stand out. To make matters worse, low-level mages can only control 2 skeletons at a time and suffer from an absurd 10-minute cooldown, making them a burden in intense combat. Chen Shi deeply regrets this choice, knowing that in any other scenario, he would never accept such a limited fate. He didn't expect an SSS-level secret class like his savior Luo Zhenning, but with his high spiritual attributes, he felt he deserved something much better. Staring at his status screen, the young man can only lament seeing such painfully average attributes, balanced at 10 points. Theoretically, high spiritual scores open doors to rare or legendary classes, and only he and the prodigy Zhang Menghuai achieved this feat this year. Interestingly, Chen Shi's spirit stat surpassed hers by a wide margin, making him anxiously wonder what class she ended up awakening. Suddenly, an announcement echoes, revealing that Zhang Menghuai has awakened as a Void Walker, an SSS-rank legendary class, leaving the boy completely shocked. Before the entire crowd, the girl appears surrounded by imposing currents of magical energy that confirm her extraordinary power. The surrounding students begin to gossip enviously, whispering that she will easily join the Destiny Alliance and questioning how Chen Shi, with a higher spirit stat, ended up so poorly. The protagonist knows that gossip is inevitable, as the difference between their classes is like the distance between heaven and earth, even though his spirit attribute was far superior to hers. Chen Shi's biggest fear is disappointing Luo Zhenning by revealing his common class, knowing he will find it hard to get into the Alliance recruitment starting next month after all. That corporation is the #1 guild in the Empire, and the only place where he would like to work directly alongside the hero who saved his life. To make matters worse, everyone knows that the recruitment process is ruthless, and only novices with rare or secret classes have any real chance of admission. Feeling out of place amidst the shower of praise directed at the young prodigy, Chen Shi decides to quietly slip away. Meanwhile, the Academy's new star is surrounded by enthusiastic classmates, celebrating her great achievement. However, she notices Chen Shi walking away and looks in his direction with intrigue for a brief moment. The day passes slowly, as the breeze sways the leaves of the trees under a pensive blue sky. Chen Shi walks back to the Jiangcheng orphanage, the place that took him in, and where he tries to find some peace. As he enters, the caretaker notices his dejected look and asks what happened. But he simply says he will skip dinner and prefers to go straight to his room. She agrees with concern, immediately suspecting that things on Awakening Day did not go as planned. The young man enters his room and closes the door, seeking to isolate himself from the outside world to put his thoughts in order. Lying down, he reflects bitterly on how a class's strength is purely innate and how effort alone seems useless compared to Zhang Menghuai's talent. Despite being discouraged, Chen Shi takes a deep breath and tries to convince himself that a shadow mage can still achieve his goals with high levels and good equipment. He envisions the hero who saved him and promises himself that, with a little more time, he will be able to fight alongside him. Hardening his determination not to give up, the young man renews his hopes of making a strong showing in the future. But suddenly, his status screen lights up with a glowing message indicating a system update in progress. He watches in confusion as the progress bar advances rapidly, reaching the halfway mark. As soon as the update finishes, Chen Shi extends his hand, intrigued, as he had never heard of a system undergoing updates. At first glance, his attributes screen remains exactly the same, making him think nothing new has actually happened. He checks his undead summoning skill and notices that the time and cost conditions seem the same as always. However, as he scrolls down the system page, an unexpected detail catches his attention. Glowing on the screen is the notification of a golden attribute called Arcane Grace, promising to unlock new bonuses every 5 levels. In all his years of study at the academy, Chen Shi had never heard of an interface that possessed golden attributes. Curious, he decides to open the details of that new passive to see what impact it would have on his spells. To his absolute astonishment, the described effect is simply the total reduction of the cooldown of all his skills. Unable to believe what he is reading, Chen Shi stammers in shock before the screen. He shouts so loudly in excitement about the lack of cooldowns that his caretaker hears it from downstairs and is puzzled by the noise. In wizarding worlds, cooldown reduction items are worth a fortune because they are extremely rare, and the young man now realizes he has this benefit infinitely and for free. With his heart racing, he realizes that his mana limit now allows him to summon dozens of skeletons at once without having to wait even a single second. Excited by the discovery, Chen Shi channels his energy and summons a massive horde of skeletons that rise from the shadows at his command. Summoning so many at once, he realizes that as he increases his maximum mana, he can expand this undead army without any limit. With such power in his hands, Chen Shi already imagines the possibility of leading a colossal army of dark creatures under his absolute control. He knows that if he can level up quickly enough over the next month, the Destiny Alliance will surely make an exception to recruit him. With no time to lose, the young man heads downstairs accompanied by his new skeletal warriors, completely startling the orphanage caretaker as he announces he is going to tackle the novice dungeon. He flashes a confident smile and mentally asks his savior to wait just a little longer, promising to make him proud very soon. Upon arriving at the dungeon lobby, Chen Shi encounters a bustling crowd of adventurers preparing for the challenges ahead. Various equipped warriors and mages circulate through the area, forming parties to ensure their survival against the dangers of the dungeons. However, when Chen Shi reaches the novice trial area, he notices it is completely empty because most prefer to party up in regular dungeons. Just then, a familiar and arrogant voice interrupts to remind him that he only awakened a common class. While others secured rare categories, Xing Wei appears arm in arm with Chen Luxi and coldly tells the young man to accept that the chasm between them is now massive. Demanding that he stop trying to get close, the young master of the consortium snubs Chen Shi, revealing that his father paid professionals to help them level up quickly, mocking that his girlfriend's ex now only has skeletons to keep him company. Chen Shi simply ignores the provocation and heads toward the portal. Aware that being abandoned by his girlfriend was to be expected in a world where the weak are quickly discarded, His situation is even worse because no other adventurer in the lobby dares to invite him to a party, fearing retaliation from the influential Xing Wei with no party alternatives. The only option left for the young mage is to gain experience by tackling the solo novice dungeon on his own. As soon as Chen Shi steps through the glowing portal, a masked man on watch closely observes his entry. He analyzes the situation with a cold, focused gaze, preparing to relay the information. Instantly, the masked man activates his holographic communication device and notifies Jiang Manhwa that Chen Shi has just started his novice trial. Inside the dungeon, the rules float before Chen Shi, warning him that the monster's level increases with each zone and that there will be no escape should he leave the safe area. Without any hesitation, the young man takes his first step, crossing the magical line that separated him from imminent danger. In the shadows of the dungeon, glowing green eyes light up as gigantic rats perceive the intruder's presence. It is a horde of level 1 glinting rats, fierce creatures that grant 10 experience points per kill. Chen Shi knows that the greatest danger for solo novices is drawing the attention of too many monsters at once, a fatal mistake that usually takes down those who venture out without support. Analyzing the respawn time and the patrol routes of the enemies, he plans to position his summons right in front to serve as a protective shield. With that, he raises his magic staff, channeling the dark energy that begins to pulse intensely around him. With a focused look, he proclaims the spell to summon the shadows and begin the combat. A spiral of dark power envelops the entire scene as the spell is masterfully cast. Ghostly faces emerge from the ground, shaping themselves from the black smoke that takes over the space. From the darkness emerge the dreaded armed skeletal soldiers, ready to blindly obey their master's orders. Thanks to the arcane grace bonus that removes his skills' cooldowns, Chen Shi continues gesturing to bring even more allies to the battlefield. The boy only halts the process when he feels his strength draining and realizes his mana bar has been completely depleted. Even so, he smiles in satisfaction upon seeing that he managed to summon 40 skeletal warriors at once, which is more than enough to dominate the dungeon. The imposing undead army now lines up before him, marching menacingly toward the monsters. The gigantic rats charge fiercely, only to slam into the insurmountable wall of shields and swords of the bone warriors. With a firm movement of his staff, the young mage points at the targets and gives the attack order. With eyes filled with icy determination, he commands his army to exterminate all the beasts that dare cross their path. The skeletal warriors charge ruthlessly, letting out a war cry against the tide of monsters. In seconds, the soldiers begin hacking the rats with precise strikes, staining the ground with blood as they clear a path. Each defeated enemy causes a holographic notice to appear on the screen, confirming the successful kill and the steady gain of experience. The one-sided massacre continues as the skeletons tear the beasts apart without suffering any counterattacks. Piles of defeated monsters begin to accumulate on the dungeon floor as Chen Shi's progress advances rapidly. Chen Shi walks calmly through the dungeon, escorted by his loyal warriors, as he watches his experience bar rise steadily. Without letting up, the skeletons continue to systematically clear the area, ensuring that no rat escapes alive. The pace is so overwhelming that the young man snaps his fingers in surprise, realizing it took him less than 10 minutes to advance from level 0 to level 1. He celebrates the feat, knowing that the experience received playing solo is immensely superior to what would be divided with a conventional party. In addition to leveling up, he receives 5 free attribute points to distribute however he sees fit. Without hesitating, Chen Shi points at the holographic screen and decides to invest all his new points into the intelligence attribute. For caster classes, this attribute is crucial, as it directly dictates the destructive power of their spells and expands their maximum mana capacity. Since magical energy is precisely the resource he needs most to keep his summons active, this was the obvious choice. The young man knows that by expanding his total capacity, he will be able to maintain an even greater number of soldiers and completely dominate any combat area. After the intense initial battle, the defeated enemies and the few damaged skeletons begin to dissolve into black smoke. Chen Shi continues advancing calmly through the dark corridors of the dungeon, flanked by his relentless battalion of undead. He then climbs the stone steps, preparing for the challenge of the next area. Upon entering the second floor of the dungeon, the silence is broken by the menacing growl of gray wolves lurking in the darkness. These level 2 beasts grant double the experience per kill, but they also prove to be much more aggressive and ready to attack without wasting time. Chen Shi commands his shadows to attack the monsters without any hesitation. One of the wolves focuses its red eyes of fury on the skeletal figure advancing toward it with a wielded sword. The confrontation is swift and devastating, with the bone soldier's blades slicing through the wolves and yielding easy experience points for the young mage. Thanks to the steady stream of kills, a golden light envelops Chen Shi's body to indicate that he has leveled up once again. He checks his stats and smiles upon seeing that he has already reached level 2 extremely quickly. Meanwhile, his guards continue sweeping the area and wiping out the remaining gray wolves trying to surround the group. The last of the beasts on that floor falls defeated on the stone floor, leaving the path completely clear for the young man to proceed. The floor is lined with the bodies of the wolves, which release a mysterious purple smoke, while Chen Shi's summons guard the passage. Looking to the side, Chen Shi notices the mysterious glow of reptilian eyes peering from the darkness of the dungeon. Suddenly, gigantic bluish snakes emerge, slithering from all corners of the hall toward the invader. With total coolness, the mage wields his staff and prepares to coordinate the defense against the new threats. He channels his magic and sends his skeletal soldiers to the front line to contain the venomous serpents. The red gem on his staff glows intensely, releasing waves of shadow energy that strengthen his minions. The soldiers leap with agility and deliver violent strikes with their swords against the monster's scales. The combat is a true tactical massacre, with the serpents being subdued one by one and granting even more experience for Chen Shi's advancement. The creatures' heads are severed mercilessly by the overwhelming force of the Shadow Army. 2 hours later, surrounded by a monumental pile of defeated monsters, Chen Shi celebrates having reached level 5 in record time, knowing that he will now unlock a new skill and a new golden attribute. He opens his system interface and focuses his eyes on the new icon representing his latest acquired spell. It is the Corpse Explosion skill, which to his absolute surprise has 0 cooldown and costs no mana points to use. With this spectacular new resource in his arsenal, the young man continues his journey up the stairs to the next floor. He walks confidently at the head of his immense undead escort, which marches in perfect synchrony through the corridors. Before him is revealed a large bluish portal signaling the entrance to the dreaded 5th floor of the dungeon. As soon as he steps through the portal, a rumble echoes as a colossal armored paw appears, revealing a powerful steel-spiked rhino lizard, a level 5 elite monster. These formidable creatures possess high defense and the ability to reflect part of the damage received from short-range physical attacks. The monsters roar fiercely, challenging the skeletal army positioning itself for combat. Chen Shi merely smiles with disdain and says they will be perfect for testing his new explosion skill. Raising his staff with pride, the young mage begins the assault on the 5th floor. He charges forward through the magical energy, showing no trace of fear. His firm steps echo through the stone hall as the battle begins to take shape. The skeletal horde clashes violently against the gigantic lizards defending the territory. The elite monster begins its devastating impact charge, running over everything in its path. Chen Shi quickly commands his warriors to spread out in a strategic fan formation to contain the advance. At the onset of combat, Chenshi shouts the command to activate his new corpse explosion skill. The eyes of the skeletons on the front line begin to glow a menacing red as their unstable power rapidly builds. An overwhelming sequence of red detonations tears the elite monsters apart in moments, yielding a massive amount of experience points all at once. The force of the explosions is so absurd that it clears the battlefield almost instantly. Ruthlessly defeating multiple elite enemies, Chenshi simply summons new soldiers and then detonates them, creating a continuous cycle of mass destruction. As the flames of the explosions still dissipate, a new alert appears on his screen, revealing that he has unlocked another golden attribute for reaching level 5. He taps the holographic screen to check the details of this new power he has just received from the system. It is the Soul Pact Guardian, a legendary attribute that transfers 100% of all damage he receives directly to his summoned skeletons. Realizing he has infinite summons thanks to zero cooldown, Chenshi flashes a sly smile as he notes that this combination makes him practically immortal. However, the fierce roar of another elite lizard echoes through the hall, calling the youth back to the reality of combat. Looking back, he notices that a few of these armored creatures are still charging furiously in his direction. One of the beasts leaps at high speed, delivering a heavy blow in an attempt to crush him. With no time to dodge, Chenshi is hit head-on by the monster's devastating impact. However, the Soul Pact Guardian Golden Attribute activates instantly, transferring the entire impact of the attack to one of his skeletons, which is destroyed in his place. Completely unharmed and with a focused gaze, Chenshi points toward the monsters and orders his army to finish them all off. His remaining soldiers charge, exploding devastatingly against the gigantic lizards, blowing the elite threat to pieces. Yet another mass detonation clears the rest of the combat area, securing an absurd amount of experience points for the young man's advancement. After the red dust settles, the young mage takes his first firm steps toward the dungeon exit. He sighs exhaustedly and realizes he is very hungry from training non-stop since dawn, deciding it is finally time to leave and look for something to eat. Chenshi steps through the glowing portal and returns to the busy main lobby of the dungeons. The place remains noisy, filled with adventurers talking and planning their next incursions. The masked man who was spying on him earlier focuses his eyes on him again, attentive to the youth's every move. Discreetly, the spy uses his perception skill to analyze the youth's updated status as he walks away. Seeing that the holographic marker displays that the youth has already reached level 5, the spy's eyes widen under his mask in absolute shock at such an absurd leveling speed. Immediately, he activates his wrist communicator to report the unbelievable discovery. He contacts Jiang Menghuai and urgently reports that Chenshi has just left the novice dungeon. Her eyes wide with surprise, through the holographic projection, the young prodigy stammers upon discovering that her classmate is already at level 5 in the luxurious Zhang family mansion. The girl tries to remain calm and asks her father to stop pacing up and down so impatiently. She comments that his restlessness is already making her dizzy as she tries to concentrate on reading an ancient magic book. The man, however, counters seriously, saying she will have all the time in the world to study later, reinforcing that the absolute priority right now must be focusing on leveling up quickly. Jiang Menghuai downplays her father's concern, confidently reminding him that because she awakened a secret class, her spot in the Destiny Alliance is practically guaranteed. Her father places his hands on the table and argues that since he himself is responsible for the Academy's recruitment for the Alliance, it would be an immense embarrassment for him if his daughter fell behind in the level rankings. Faced with his persistence, the young woman closes her book and relents, promising to eat something quick before heading out to hunt in the fields and accumulate experience. He sighs and massages his forehead, grumbling that he spoiled her too much and that she is now acting with too much pride. But upon checking her communication watch and reading her informant's message confirming that Chenshi has already reached level 5, The girl is frozen in astonishment. Unaware of his daughter's surprise, the father asks why she seems so spacey and insists she eat quickly before leaving for training. He advises her to try to reach level 5 before nightfall so she can enter the dungeons, having no idea that Chen Shi has already reached that mark in just a few hours in an absurd manner. Pensively, the girl turns and questions her father about what he knows regarding the novice trial dungeon, leaving him puzzled by the sudden question. With an extremely serious expression, the man firmly warns that the trial dungeon is considered a true death trap for solo novices. He explains that although the monsters there grant slightly more experience, the efficiency of the location is terrible compared to training accompanied by professionals in open fields. The man adds that even secret class holders would have extreme difficulty surviving for 10 consecutive hours in that place, questioning if she thinks the trials are some kind of amusement park. The girl keeps her astonishment to herself, thinking that Chen Shi not only survived, but cleared the entire area in just 2 hours, which seems impossible for someone with a supposedly common shadow mage class. Oblivious to this, the father reinforces that low-level shadow mages are vulnerable due to the long cooldown of their summons, strictly forbidding her from setting foot in that trial field under any circumstances. Next, he changes the subject and asks if there is anyone else with promising potential in this year's class, to which the young woman mysteriously replies that there is indeed a standout candidate curious. The man narrows his eyes and inquires who she is talking about. Flashing a mischievous smile, the girl begins to leave the office and says she won't reveal the name since he forbade her from going to the trial field. The father exclaims that he is only looking out for her well-being, justifying that he only wished to track the progress of the other 5 students who awakened rare classes in that class. Looking over her shoulder with disdain, Zhang Menghuai dismisses the matter, stating she has absolutely no interest and has no idea how those 5 are doing. She quickly says goodbye as she walks out the door, leaving her father grumbling indignantly about how stubborn and difficult to handle his daughter can be. The young woman's elegant footsteps echo across the wooden floor as she heads toward the mansion's exit. Once outside, she contacts her informant, ordering them to continue monitoring Chen Shi's every step, receiving immediate information that the young mage is currently at the luxurious Shengtian restaurant. Meanwhile, the busy streets of downtown Tianyi bustle with local commerce under the bright daylight. Chen Shi walks calmly along the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, focused on satisfying his hunger. He stops in front of the Grand Shengtian restaurant, the most sophisticated establishment in the city, famous for having high-class chefs who prepare dishes capable of granting temporary attribute buffs. However, aware that the prices there are absurdly expensive for his modest savings, he decides against entering and resolves to find a common street stall before heading to the next dungeon. But as he turns the corner, the young man's peace is interrupted as he crosses paths with Xing Wei and his group of elite adventurers. With a sarcastic smirk, Xing Wei approaches to provoke him, mocking why the boy is so quiet and asking if he is no longer going to pretend to be tough. Chen Shi maintains a neutral and indifferent expression, completely ignoring his rival's cheap attempt at provocation. The rival openly mocks his basic-level equipment, questioning if all that high-spirit potential served only to make him look so pathetic and poorly equipped. Xing Wei proudly displays his rare gear and boasts that he is already almost level 3 in just 2 hours thanks to his elite party, asking disdainfully what level the protagonist is stuck on. Having no patience for such futility, Chen Shi simply glares at him coldly and tells the youth to get out of his face once and for all. The young master's smirk vanishes instantly, replaced by an expression of blind fury as he demands the mage repeat what he just said. The muscular bodyguards accompanying the rival take an intimidating step forward, ready to start a physical confrontation right there in the middle of the street. Suddenly, the tense atmosphere is broken as Chen Luxi observes the situation with disdain, unable to believe that Chen Shi would actually dare to fight back. She remains silent, merely observing Xingwei's arrogance and the apparent weakness of her former partner. But before any blow is landed, a high-heeled boot strikes Xingwei's face with a spectacular flying kick that sends him flying. The young heir crashes violently against the stone ground, totally disoriented by the surprise attack he has just suffered. He gets up furious, rubbing his face and screaming that he will murder the bastard who dared to ambush him. However, he freezes completely upon raising his eyes and coming face to face with the legendary Manhwa, who glares at him extremely coldly. Xingwei immediately changes his tone, stammering that it is all a misunderstanding and that they would never lower themselves to Chen Shi's level. A commanding voice echoes, ordering everyone to disperse and end that commotion in the middle of the plaza. Once and for all, Xingwei decides to retreat with his group, but not without casting a hate-filled glare, threatening that Chen Shi will regret it bitterly if he catches him alone in the future. Chen Shi merely watches him leave indifferently, thinking to himself that the feeling of contempt is completely mutual. With the rival out of the way, Zhang Menghua turns to Chen Shi in a friendly manner and offers to buy him a meal. The youth thanks her for the timely help from earlier, but she downplays the incident, saying there is no need for so much formality between them. Observing the elite guards accompanying her, Chen Shi notices that the young woman has a strong group focused on helping her level up, right before she invites him to eat something and join them for field training. Although he knows that hunting in parties with large level differences generates severe experience penalties, the youth understands that the speed of the fights compensates for this delay. She also asks if he needs any better equipment, commenting that decent weapons and armor make early leveling much easier. Demonstrating his independence, the youth gently declines the offer of help, saying goodbye with a wave as he goes his own way to find a simple meal. Sometime later, Chen Shi makes his way to the busy group dungeon area of Tianyi City. The masked spy remains hot on his heels, silently tracking his steps through the crowd circulating in the lobby. The man is intrigued and questions why a low-level solo mage would be heading straight for the group challenge zone. Chen Shi analyzes the available options, aware that there are only 2 dungeons suitable for his current level range. Across the hall, entire teams of coordinated adventurers position themselves on the magical teleportation circles. Not caring about the absence of companions, the youth stands alone on one of the glowing platforms. Magical energy begins to emanate around his legs, preparing to send Chen Shi to his combat destination. He selects the Ice Cave dungeon on normal difficulty, confirming the choice on the system panel. When prompted by the system to confirm entry without a full party, he simply clicks yes to audaciously proceed alone. The masked spy watches the scene from afar, completely incredulous at what he has just witnessed in the lobby. In shock, he mutters to himself that this boy is about to challenge a dungeon designed for entire parties completely solo. As soon as he steps through the portal, a rumble echoes as a colossal armored paw appears, revealing a powerful ice-spiked rhino lizard, a level 5 elite monster. The dungeon spans 3 zones filled with freezing dangers, guarded by the fearsome boss, the supreme ice mole. The young mage lands firmly on the dungeon's entry magic circle, facing the relentless blizzard before him. Taking his first steps through the freezing environment, Chen Shi shivers from the cold and regrets not bringing a heavy coat to handle the location's extreme temperature. But his determination remains intact, as he knows that the trial dungeon no longer offers the level of challenge and rewards he needs to progress. With a focused gaze, he prepares to summon his forces once again and begin the monster hunt in the cave. He channels his shadow energy onto the snowy ground to conjure his protective army of undead. The staff glows intensely, releasing beams of black magic that tear through the cave's freezing air. From the frozen shadows emerge the bone warriors in their gleaming armor, ready to obey his commands. In just a few seconds, dozens of soldiers form a relentless defensive line, covering the dungeon's entire snowy valley. They wield their swords and shields, focusing their empty eyes on the creatures rapidly approaching through the snow. Appearing before the skeletal army is a horde of gigantic ice moles with glowing red eyes and sharp claws. Since these beasts prioritize flesh and blood targets by scent, the presence of lifeless skeletal soldiers leaves them confused and prevents them from focusing their attacks on the summoner. Without any effective resistance, the moles are easily surrounded and sliced by the undead's sharp blades. The fight becomes a true systematic elimination zone, with the creature's blood staining the white snow and generating plenty of experience for the mage. Chen Shi analyzes the combat and is pleased to realize that this dungeon yields far more evolution points and even guarantees extra coin and item rewards. The only downside for him is that merely collecting the loot left behind, while his army does all the work, ends up being a bit monotonous. He continues his triumphant walk and decides to enter the next chamber, which houses the dungeon's elite monsters. Suddenly, the ice breaks with a crash, revealing an immense elite ice mole, a massive beast with a weakness to amplified damage from area of effect spells. Upon identifying the opponent's vulnerability, Chen Shi extends his hand and orders his army to surround it immediately. The Bone Warriors surround the immense elite mole from all sides in a coordinated manner, while the mage takes a strategic position to finalize the fight. With the enemy completely cornered, the youth utters the magic word to initiate the sequential detonations of his soldiers. A brutal red explosion consumes the elite monster in moments, reducing it to ashes with absurd ease under Chen Shi's satisfied gaze. The immense elite monster falls completely defeated in the snow, granting Chen Shi a reward of 300 experience points. To make things even better, the creature drops a glowing, rare loot chest right after disappearing. The revealed item is the level 5 Ice Mole Cloak, a rare-grade blue equipment that grants an extra 13 points of intelligence and increases mana capacity by 120. Pleased with the cloak's benefits, he clicks to collect the loot and reflects on how the opponent's low magic resistance made its elimination easy with the explosion of just a few of his skeletons. The young mage resumes his trek through the frozen dungeon, preparing to face the next floors. However, the fatigue and accumulated hunger after hours of uninterrupted training begin to weigh on him, making him decide it is time to wrap up the dungeon and look for a simple place to eat. Suddenly, another horde of freezing moles emerges in his path to try and halt the youth's progress at any cost. His skeletal soldiers act immediately, blocking the beast's onslaughts with their metal shields. The Bone Warriors leap into combat nimbly, slicing the monsters without any hesitation. The confrontation remains violent in the middle of the cave, with the ice creatures being ruthlessly dominated by the tactical force of the shadows. 20 minutes later, after sweeping the entire remainder of the route without difficulty, Chen Shi finally reaches the main chamber. Before the entrance to the boss area, he catches sight of an intimidating red glow coming from the deepest darkness of the cave. It is the feared Supreme Ice Mole boss, a colossal beast wearing imposing metallic armor and sporting a shining crown on its head. In cold blood, the youth raises his staff and begins to concentrate an immense amount of shadow energy around himself. He commands his entire skeletal battalion to charge en masse to immobilize the giant beast and prepare the fatal corpse detonations. The bone soldiers run fearlessly toward the colossal opponent, without hesitating for a single second. The warriors leap in a pack onto the supreme mole, clinging to its armor to ensure it cannot escape by any means. The giant monster tries to thrash around in a rage, but ends up completely cornered by the massive number of bone minions. With the target fully immobilized, the skeletons' bodies begin to glow intensely in a fiery red, ready for detonation. A colossal and deafening explosion consumes the entire ice chamber, vaporizing the dungeon's great boss in moments. The reddish shockwave sweeps across the entire frozen scene, clearing any trace of enemies that might remain in the hall. The dreaded Ice Mole King collapses lifelessly in the snow, granting Chen Shi a massive reward of 1,000 experience points and the absolute success of the challenge. Without wasting time, the mage clicks the system button to collect the final loot left by the defeated great leader. Before him are revealed the spiked ice boots and the ice marrow bone staff, extremely rare purple-tier items for a common dungeon. He holds with satisfaction the new and imposing frost staff, which glows with an intense magic blue gem at the top. The youth is dazzled to check that the staff, besides being worth a fortune on the gold market, increases his intelligence by 30 points and considerably boosts his skill's power. Wearing his new frosty cloak and holding the powerful staff, he now sports the imposing look of a true elite caster. Pleased with his absurd progress, he clicks the holographic button to leave the dungeon and return to the lobby. Back in the dungeon lobby, the masked spy continues to watch the teleportation platform suspiciously. Suddenly, the magic circle glows intensely again, signaling Chen Shi's triumphant return from the portal. The watchman checks his watch and is immediately suspicious, thinking it impossible for a mere shadow mage to solo that dungeon in just 20 minutes and deducing that he must have given up. However, he lets out a muffled gasp of surprise as he focuses his gaze on the youth who has just returned from the platform. The spy is frozen in terror upon recognizing that the youth is wearing the extremely rare cloak and wielding the dungeon's legendary bone staff. The next day, in the Academy auditorium, the students converse in absolute shock as they look at the leaderboard and see that Chen Shi has reached the unbelievable level 8 on his very first day. They comment that reaching level 6 is already extremely rare for novices, and that level 8 was something completely unprecedented in the entire history of the Academy. On the glowing leaderboard, Chen Shi's name stands proudly at the top of the podium as the runaway first-place finisher of the awakened class. The institution's director smiles in satisfaction upon seeing the result, commenting that the youth lived up to his record of possessing the highest mental and spiritual power ever registered in the Academy's history. He knows that even with rich families clearing entire areas to carry their heirs, the maximum limit on the first day used to be level 6, making Chen Shi's feat almost miraculous. Watching the board from afar, Jiang Menghua bitterly regrets not having insisted on joining him to train the previous day. Knowing she would surely be in the lead alongside her classmate, Chen Shi sits down beside his former rival in a relaxed manner, sarcastically congratulating him on his class results and saying he needs to keep putting in a lot of effort. Xingwei trembles in silent fury, clenching his fists in hatred, unable to accept that a mere common-class shadow mage has surpassed all his advantages as a wealthy heir. On the stage, the Academy speaker praises the excellent performance of this year's class, cheerfully commenting on the presence of hidden and brilliant talents among the young graduates sitting among the evaluators. Jiang Menghua's father observes the leaderboard with a focused and suspicious gaze regarding the results. He recalls how his daughter had insisted on mentioning the Shadow Mage class and deduces that she surely already knew of the hidden potential Chen Shi harbored on stage. The presenter adjusts his tie and prepares to commence the graduation speeches and instructions. He begins his lecture, explaining in detail the essential precautions and survival rules for novice adventurers when entering group dungeons. The students listen to the guidelines with extreme attention and respect, absorbing every valuable combat detail for their future safety. Jiang Menghua remains pensive throughout the speaker's presentation, focusing her thoughts on her classmates' mysterious capabilities. The speaker wraps up the general announcements and advises that should students still have doubts about their new classes, they should directly seek out their respective training instructors. With a final dismissal command from the Master of Ceremonies, the official presentation concludes under the bright sunny sky of the Academy. As the students leave the auditorium talking excitedly, everyone comments with fascination on Chen Shi's unbelievable feat of reaching level 8 on his very first day. Chen Shi walks calmly through the academy courtyard under the gentle afternoon breeze, oblivious to all the whispering glances around him. Suddenly, Chen Luxi runs in a hurry and positions herself in front of the youth to stop him, interrupting his quiet walk. She lowers her gaze repentantly and apologizes for what happened yesterday, but the youth merely stares back in confusion and asks what she is talking about. Chen Luxi is frozen in astonishment, realizing that in the past he would never treat her so coldly and distantly. Trying to restore their previous bond, she suggests they form a party to level up together in dungeons from now on. With total disinterest, Chen Shi declines the invitation on the spot, dryly letting her know he already has a teammate. Desperate, she begs him to forget her harsh words from the previous day, claiming she only acted in the heat of the moment, consumed by anger. He glares at her sternly and reminds her of her own words when she herself claimed they belonged to entirely different worlds. Chen Luxi persists, unsatisfied, asking if he could truly forget all past feelings in just 24 hours. Just then, Jiang Menghui approaches with a firm posture and asks if the youth is considering changing teammates, to which he immediately responds that he has no such intention. Chen Luxi's eyes widen in complete shock as she realizes that her ex-boyfriend's legendary partner is none other than the Academy's young prodigy. With a victorious smile, Jiang Menghui invites Chen Shi to leave immediately and start their hunting training in the wilderness. Chen Luxi remains static in the courtyard, watching in complete silence and frustration as the two walk away together. Meanwhile, at the luxurious Xing family residence, Xingwei reports recent events to his father, who listens to it all while taking a thoughtful sip of tea. The man, an official member of the Destiny Alliance, is surprised to hear about the unbelievable level 8 achieved by the novice Xingwei, seriously confirms that the result is real, and that the Academy's official board would never make such a gross classification error. The veteran bitterly recalls how the rival leader always kept him on a short leash in the guild, without even looking him in the eye for years. He assesses that the sudden closeness between Jiang Menghui and Chen Shi represents an immense danger to his own family's interests in the association. The son questions if the girl's intention was merely to recruit the young talent, but his father promptly denies this simple hypothesis. The experienced warrior points out that a mere novice shadow mage would not draw so much attention, and that the closeness would only make sense if Chen Shi possessed some extremely valuable item. Xingwei is confused, questioning where an orphan from a humble background would manage to obtain equipment capable of sparking such interest from the leaders. The father explains in detail that reaching level 8 on the very first day is technically impossible by conventional means, even when using the best low-level support team. He adds that even special group contracts to negate experience penalties would not explain this absurd feat unless there was another factor at play with a dark gaze. The man concludes that the only logical explanation would be Chen Shi possessing a legendary item capable of multiplying experience gain. Xingwei ponders that such items have astronomical prices and high-level requirements, unless the artifact in question were a rare item with no level restriction for novice use. He excitedly realizes that the value of an item with no level limit and an experience multiplier would be immeasurable, allowing any guild that possessed it to dominate the scene rapidly. Overcome by ambition and the panic of falling behind, the youth tells his father they cannot stand idly by while other influential families try to seize the artifact. The veteran points his finger and coldly orders them to eliminate Chen Shi to seize the valuable equipment from his hands before other guilds act. Xingwei flashes a sadistic smile and enthusiastically agrees with the execution order, seeing in it the perfect opportunity to avenge his prior humiliation. Meanwhile, in the fog-covered surroundings of the ruins of Wuyi village, the calm of the abandoned place hides the dangers of the old world's wilderness. Two pairs of boots walk across the damp earth, as an alert indicates they have just entered the territory of the dangerous level. 13 demonic moths, Jiang Menghui, expresses her concern and questions Chen Shi whether they should truly continue advancing, warning about the extreme risks of that wild zone. After all, the moths in that region have a wide perception radius and fiercely attack any intruder at the slightest sign of movement or the scent of blood in the mist. Confidently, the youth points his glowing staff and warns that the point of interest is less than 50 meters away, requiring only finding the exact coordinates to open the rift portal. Suddenly, the heavy sound of robust footsteps breaks the silence of the environment, revealing the approach of menacing figures through the dense mist. Both Chen Shi and his partner go on high alert and narrow their eyes in the direction of the unexpected threat. 3 armed and masked mercenaries emerge from the mist, blocking the path and commenting intimidatingly on their attack plan. The gang's leader comments that novices don't usually venture so far from the city alone, which made ambush opportunities rare until now. With a cruel smile beneath his hood, he celebrates the youth's audacity in leaving the city unprotected. Seeing in it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Chen Shi maintains his composure, firmly holding his frosty staff while calmly questioning what they mean by that. The mercenary wields his dagger and coldly reveals that the influential Xing family ordered the youth's death specifically to steal the valuable equipment he carries. The assassin spins the sharp blade in his hand, commenting sadistically on the young mage's terrible lack of luck in that forest. He mockingly admits that his group needed easy money, which is why they readily accepted the contract killing offered by the rival guild. Chen Shi analyzes the mercenary's words calmly, wondering if the petty rivalry with Xing Wei would truly go so far as to order his death over equipment. The youth does the math and realizes that although his new staff is very rare for his starting level, it doesn't possess enough value to justify an assassination attempt by such a wealthy guild. He concludes that besides his valuable staff, all his other common equipment is blue-grade and would not justify such effort from the mercenaries. Not wanting to waste any more time reasoning through his enemy's motivations, the mage decides to set doubts aside and focus on combat faced with the group of assassins blocking the way back. Chen Shi realizes that the only realistic alternative is to eliminate all threats right then and there. With a direct command, the final battle for the young mage's survival begins amidst the forest's dark fog. Chen Shi quickly analyzes the surrounding environment and realizes that the open terrain is dangerous and disadvantageous for him and Jiang Menghui to fight against fast assassins. Without giving the youth time to plan, the hooded assassin charges at high speed. Wielding his sharp daggers, he quickly appears beside Jiang Menghui and coldly warns her not to try touching her holographic communicator to call for help. Placing the dagger right against the young woman's neck, he threatens to take her life immediately should she dare make any suspicious movement. With total coolness, Jiang Menghui inquires if the Xing family didn't warn them about her identity, revealing that her father is Jiang Zhengqiong, the great deacon of the Destiny Alliance, and questioning if they really have the courage to attack her. The revelation makes the assassin's accomplices hesitate for a brief moment, exchanging doubtful glances amidst the mist. The gang's leader, however, lets out a sarcastic smirk and mocks her lineage, arguing that no one would ever know who killed her if all traces were erased right there in the abandoned ruins. Seeing the mercenary's coldness regarding the digitalized world, Chen Shi decides to intervene in the conversation and asks the group of criminals to calm down. The assassin mocks him, asking if the youth intends to beg for mercy or try to bribe them, making it clear that the gang's reputation is on the line, and they will not accept bribes. Chen Shi flashes a clever smile and suggests that if they truly intend to kill them without leaving any clues, it would be much better to do so in the isolated interior of the misty canyon just ahead, where they could also open the rift and collect all the rewards as a bonus. The assassin's eyes widen with greed, surprised by the fact that the boy managed to get such a valuable rift item on his very first hunt. The muscular mercenary lets out a mocking laugh, praising the youth's wisdom in personally choosing his own burial site. The hooded figure points his blade at Chen Shi and dryly orders him to guide the way to the exact location under threat of immediate death. The mage calmly accepts and begins to guide the band, thinking to himself that because they are fast assassins, fighting in that open field would make capturing them difficult. But the narrow canyon just ahead will be a perfect trap from which they will never escape. Jiang Menghuai accompanies him apprehensively, mentally questioning what the youth is planning by taking them to such a confined terrain with no escape routes. The small group walks in single file through the stone valley, surrounded by the thick mist that covers the entire frozen trail. Along the way, a large level 13 mist-scale demonic moth suddenly flies into view, trying to attack them. Without showing any effort, the blue-haired mercenary readies a quick strike with his sharp blade. With a single precise cut in the air, he instantly slices the moth in half mid-flight. The monster falls in pieces onto the frosty grass before the watchful eyes of the young mage, who is studying the opponent's strength. Jiang Menghuai subtly comments on the gang's strength in eliminating level 13 monsters with a single blow, prompting the big guy to proudly reveal that all three of them are level 18 professional assassins. Hearing the information, Chen Shi displays a slight smile of confidence and mentally ponders that the level difference is not that intimidating, and the narrow geography of the canyon will make eliminating them highly feasible. She, on the other hand, remains in absolute panic as she calculates the power disadvantage of two novices against experienced assassins. Unable to understand how Chen Shi manages to maintain such tranquility, they finally deepen their path within the narrow rock walls inside the white mist gorge. In the fog ahead, the imposing and flaming silhouette of a wild beast begins to take shape on the damp dirt path. A fierce howl echoes through the rocks as the animal rapidly leaps toward the group to attack. It is a level 15 mist firetail fox, a swift creature enveloped in blazing, aggressive flames. The mercenary leader reacts promptly, crossing his daggers to contain the fire monster's aggressive charge. The impact of the block kicks up dust and shears the low vegetation around the stone trail. The muscular companion leaps with his heavy axe to flank the flaming creature in a coordinated manner. The hooded figure seizes the opening to drive his dagger deep into the fox's back. Next, the big guy delivers a violent kick that throws the wounded animal hard against the rocky wall. He swings his axe down with brutal force to finish the beast once and for all in the middle of the snow. The level 15 fox falls defeated on the frozen trail, revealing to Chen Shi that despite their strength, the mercenaries can no longer eliminate monsters of this level with a single basic strike. Annoyed by the interruption, the gang's leader demands that the youth spit out the exact location of the dungeon and stop dragging them along. Chen Shi points to a narrow crack in the rocks, knowing perfectly well that this dead end surrounded by stone walls will be the ideal place to corner and eliminate his pursuers. With a greedy smile, the hooded figure celebrates, thinking he will manage to complete the assassination, steal the items, and open the rift all at once, blinded by ambition. The band of mercenaries rushes ahead to enter the narrow canyon, leaving Chen Shi and Jiang Menghuai behind. The young mage cracks a mocking smile upon seeing that they walked into the trap on their own without him needing to make any effort of persuasion. He raises his powerful frosty bone staff to initiate his own magical elimination move. A massive curtain of shadow mist rises behind the assassins, shaping the imposing figures of his armored skeletal warriors. Hearing the sound of bony footsteps echoing through the dead-end corridor, the mercenaries stop immediately and look back in alarm. The hooded figure frowns in confusion upon seeing the path back completely blocked by Chen Shi's armed undead soldiers. Jiang Menghuai is also surprised to observe the youth summon his forces inside, failing to understand his true intentions against such superior opponents. The mercenaries begin to laugh out loud in mockery, jeering if the low-level boy truly believes that two simple bone carcasses could save them from experienced assassins. The leader mocks his attitude, commenting that he didn't expect the youth to give up without a fight, but that his attempt at defense with just two skeletons was the funniest thing he had ever seen, with a sadistic and defiant smile on his face. Chenshi responds coldly that they won't have time to trade blows, as his only intention is to send them straight to hell.